Good day, everybody. Maybe you can hear me. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is a very special broadcast tonight called The Assembly, Women of Truth talking about health and well-being. And of course, I'm joined by two phenomenal ladies, and we will have more jumping on a little bit after the hour to tell us about the very important, relevant projects that are now running on women's health around the world. But to start off with tonight, I want to introduce you to my first guest. Christy Terznik is a life coach, a hypnotist, a spiritual mentor, author, motivational speaker, and really helps overwhelmed professional women with the law of attraction and mindset. And so you can see why we've invited her here tonight. She has so much to offer us. And we're also joined by one of our thought leaders for the future of women's health, Deborah Cherry, who's a mindset coach. And I'll tell you more about her as she joins in as well later on. And to start off with, I wanted to just get the ball rolling with you, Christy, and welcome you to Women of Truth. Thanks for joining me once again. You hopped on one of our global summits during lockdown a few months ago. And of course, now it's almost 6, 7, 8 months down the line. And we're using tonight's hour to really broadcast live around the world some of the opinions, the solutions, and the insights from women like yourself and others on what women are facing nowadays and what they can actually do to be a bit benefited or a bit more assisted or supported during this tough time. And during this whole 2021 year, as we see it, there are many more challenges coming up as well. So let's just start off talking about what we think could be one of the most important areas to discuss tonight, which is the balance between life and work and all these new roles that women have been assigned now during lockdowns and during the change of the system. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing and how it's looking from where you are in your work and in the United States.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is a lot of women are quickly burning out because we are wearing so many different hats. We're in the career. Many women are the breadwinners of their family. They're taking care of their families. So they're doing all of the errands, the cooking, the shopping, the cleaning of the house. And also because of all these continuous lockdowns, it's the fatigue of having that uncertainty and just the never-ending changes that are coming. So women are really feeling off balance because they don't know how to navigate this new experience with things in a way that honors themselves and yet accomplishes everything that they need to be doing.
Yeah. So if you are listening and watching, is that your experience? Is this something that's happening for you right now? Is this something you might even be feeling bad about? Is it something that you're beating yourself up about? Are you trying to be better at it than what you see yourself being? And is it causing even more stress for you that you're dealing with it in that way? Do a quick check on that and let's keep listening, because tonight we might be able to find some really interesting solutions for all of this, because we have Christy here as a spiritual mentor, and I wanted to accent now the way that you're tuning into that is such a phenomenal thing about you, Christy, that you also have ways of articulating what's invisible, what's in the space, and then helping people really work on that. So let's name it if we can. What would you say are the new roles or the new chores that women are actually having to do now that they weren't having to do before? One thing you named, which I totally resonate with and agree so much on, is the uncertainty. There's a certain fatigue in being unpracticed in dealing with uncertainty and then having to do it for such a long stretch of time. So that's something everyone's dealing with, both women and men, and the kids as well, probably. But let's add to that. What are the other difficulties, if we were to name them? What are the extra challenges, the extra jobs women are asked to do?
Yeah, it starts, well, we can start with the business aspect. A lot of women are having to restructure how they do their business. So there's that added pressure. Maybe they were going away from the home to do their business and now they're at home and they have to figure out how to pivot, how to perhaps maybe learn new technology, things like that. They're also being asked to now be homeschooling many of their children and the daycare of their children, keeping their children busy enough so that they can still accomplish everything that they need to be accomplishing for their working environment. But yet we still have a household that needs to take place. So, hopefully we have a partner who is also able to help with all of that. But a lot of time the expectation comes that it's a women's role or women's responsibility to do the majority of that. So that's another thing that we have to be navigating, and then really just taking care of ourselves too. And because of like the lockdown and the restrictions, many women aren't able to take care of themselves physically as much as they had been, getting the exercise and just the outlet of getting out of the house and replenishing themselves and re-energizing. So it's causing so much extra pressure on themselves.
Got it. I'm really glad we did that, because when you actually define certain things like that, name it, you can actually start getting a lot clearer on what stress really is and start targeting and triggering very specific solutions for it. So we talked about homeschooling, number one, pivoting business if you're an entrepreneur, very big stress to be doing that. Household cleaning gets based again into this gender role of it being more a woman's thing than a man's thing. If that's going on in your house, then it's pretty normal as well that would be happening. Many people experiencing it. Constant distraction I added to the list, because I think the fact that kids are at home, there's the uncertainty, as we said, everyone's facing, but all this new kind of requirements scattered in our lives, for many women, it would create a kind of constant need to manage distraction. And I know that's something I see a lot on calls with different people working from home. The extra self-care, number 5, that's needed in a time when you're emotionally strained, but of course now can't offer it to yourself because you're so busy. That would be 5 stressors. And then you've got exercise, the challenge of that. Some people aren't really able to do the exercise in the time they're given because of lockdown curfews, etc. But also just generally, the kind of exercise routine has gone out the window for a lot of people who can't go to the gym or their classes are not running. And then we've got the kind of external environment that we're not accessing, which doesn't give us a break from home life and external life. So those are 7 stressors. I always say as a clinical psych, if you hit 3, you're using emotional resources that are buried inside of you already. When you start getting to 5, you start getting a little bit burnt out in those emotional resources, and you have to now get support or mentoring. If you're now on 7, so if you're experiencing everything I've just said as a mother at home, it's pretty likely that you're on the right call and you're with us and we're with you and we have your back and we want to help you out. And we've got some great people here tonight. As you heard Christy already articulating the problem, we're going to now move a little bit into the solution, and we're going to hear from Deborah Cherry, our mindset coach as well, and later on Shauna Pelton, who runs a podcast called Quantum Transformational Work, but it's got some really beautiful leadership components and self-development components. And we'll hear also about different people that are concerned about women's health tonight. So tell us, Christy, what would you say is one thing, let's just look at one thing right now that you have been helping people do to try and lessen the load or to lighten some of this intensity? Do you have something to suggest?
Yeah, so the first thing is to really start with grace, giving yourself permission to not be perfect during this time, to, do your best that you can and understand that that's enough. And then beyond that, the thing that's helping many, many women is really establishing boundaries. But giving yourself a certain time period or a certain focus that you're going to be focusing on one thing. And then when that time is complete, then be present in the next thing that you're doing. This will also help with the distraction that so many of us are experiencing, because when you're giving yourself those parameters of what you're focusing on, and like, again, having that grace of this is what I'm going to be giving my attention to, being fully present and engaged, you're able to feel more fulfilled and more satisfied with the outcomes that you're experiencing with things, because you know that you did everything that you could to the best of your abilities. So it helps to ease some of that internal pressure that we put on ourselves.
So I agree with that. And I love the mention of boundaries coming up again here, because perhaps this is really crash course time now. Like, if we haven't gotten some of the boundaries down in our lives, this is a very important time to have to get some of that organized, because I think we just cannot survive without them anymore. And of course, things are closing in, the walls are closing in for a lot of mothers now. There's not much space left. So being able to really say that you cannot past a certain point is a very important tool right now. But I liked also how you framed it around being really present, Christy, like this is what I'm doing now. And so I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking about the list. I'm not thinking about whether I did the last thing well enough or not. I'm really just putting my present awareness into this thing right now. Coming to you in mindset, Deborah Cherry, this is one of our thought leaders on the Women of Truth Revolutionizing the Future of Women's Health, also an intuitive Reiki master teacher and a life coach. Deborah Cherry is actually going to be teaching a masterclass on the difference between taking on a diagnosis versus a prognosis for anyone that has a chronic illness or anyone that's facing something really heavy and intense in terms of a future life prognosis, for example, from a chronic disease, is going to benefit from this masterclass. But of course, also anyone who's really needing some of these mindset shifts, like you've just heard from Christy, getting very clear on your boundaries is very important. And knowing how to navigate from one thing to the next thing when you're very stressed out is very important, and it can be facilitated when you're very mindful of what it is that you're doing in that moment. You're very present and very aware. And that has a lot to do with how you're organizing your mind and your mental state each and every step. And that's where Deborah Cherry is going to come in now. Welcome, Deborah. Lovely to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what do you think regarding Christie's way that she explained the problems and the solution. What would you say? What do you think? What do you see?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think another area that mothers are really really have to be counselors for our kids too, who are really navigating a really difficult spot. Like they've never been here before. They've never had to learn from school. It's navigating so much change, and so we have to bring on the counselor role, and you know, kids are under stress. They've never had to deal with this, and really I like the self-care component is making time for yourself, and maybe not having such high expectations, maybe having no expectations, and just going through the day being present, like Christy said, but also finding gratitude in the moments, that even the small wins, whether I think a small win is sometimes when my kids pick up after themselves, or help with dinner, or, you know, just give you that 5 minutes to get your work done, or having that respect, like the boundary thing, like I'm on a call right now, I need you to respect my space and I will respect your space. Those are all finding gratitude is one of the best ways you can elevate your vibration and where you're coming from. And the more that you can come from a higher vibration, the more harmony that you can have in your day-to-day tasks.
Wow, I love that as well. So we adding some of this complexity in. So I hope if you're listening, you're feeling a little bit of that feeling of being understood, being normalized, that it's absolutely okay to feel a bit pressured right now in your parenting, because I like how you say this as well, Deborah, that the counselor role is coming into parenting now in a different way to how it was before, because children are faced with something totally new and unfamiliar. And we as parents and as adults are looked upon as the ones who have the answers, who have the compass, who are supposed to know the answers. So that can be quite a lot of pressure, especially added to everything we've just said, those 7 stressors. You know, you've got to now add in this complexity of parenting. But a great solution for that, and a nice way to get your mind a little bit more organized, is to start to look at the wins. Like the 5 minutes where they let you do a little piece of work is really important to be grateful for. I think it's a great thing to name, because sometimes it is just 5 minutes and it's enough to make a call, or enough to send that message, or just sit down in peace for 3 minutes before you cook dinner and actually send 3 SMSs, or do, you know, your little messenger reply backs, whatever it is. And especially if you're running a business, every little communication moment helps to close off something. So that's a very important way to get some of the work done, and to be grateful for that. And I liked also what you said about the respect. I think if we're listening for respect, I remember doing landmark forum training many years ago, and it was one of the exercises is how can you go through the week listening for respect, meaning how can you look at the community around you, your work, your home life, and really invest in hearing people respect you. And I think when we're very stressed, we stop hearing the world in a loving way towards us because we're so full and so frustrated and so triggered and so activated by so many other things we're worrying about. So we don't tune in. So even just listening for how much your kids are respecting you in this time, the little bit of time and attention that they can give you, you can read that as respect, and that gives you a very, very good boost to deal with the end of the night, the next day, with a little bit of a smile on your face, just knowing that, you know, it's not all bad. And those little perceptive changes are really powerful because they can actually pivot us into a whole new way. What do you think, Christy? What is your feedback on that?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Everything that you ladies have said is spot on, because, you know, as Deborah had said, it's going to be raising your energetic vibration, you know, and when you have that higher vibration, you're going to be seeing the world differently. Like your subconscious is going to be, like you said, Helene, you know, you're going to be looking into the world, finding those things that are more in alignment with that positive expectation, that positive belief. So it's a beautiful thing. Absolutely. It's definitely something that's going to be helping.
Yeah, great. So we've got this new idea, everyone, that we want to now maybe extract from these wonderful ladies what they've said, the idea of a frequency, a higher frequency. So let's imagine for a moment that you're not the only ones going through this kind of difficulty, that there's an entire world of people sitting with many different challenges right now, men, women, children. And for many of us, it's a familiar concept that we can raise our vibration, that we can raise our frequency. And for many, it's just simply not. So if you are one of the privileged ones, and I do mean it's a gift to know about this, because you can understand that there's a way to prepare yourself and get yourself ready into a certain mode of knowing that your priority is to keep a healthy, positive, and spirited perception of what's going on, and to keep working for that as your goal. Everything else is substandard to that. And once you know that you can go for that as goal number one, everything else starts to drop off into a little bit of a secondary value, because you know that what's important is to come from this higher place. And I like to call that the altitude attitude. I wrote a project around it, and I love those words, so I keep using them. But I want to refer you back to something that happened in our group recently, because we actually did a poll. And this is why I say we're all going through challenges. So there's no need to feel bad about it or guilty or even, you know, imposter syndrome. I spoke to a friend who was telling me so much about how, you know, she's doing an amazing job right now, and she works on relief in war-torn countries and all kinds of, you know, really tough NGO work. And she's worked to the bone, you know, 8 to 8 full day, and she's got a child at home and feels a lot of guilt around leaving the child in the care of the partner because she's got such a hectic workload. And she was questioning a lot of her value in the conversation, and I actually put a stop to it. Very strict and very firm. And I felt very happy to be a friend to be able to do that, because she's a leader in her own right. But I could see it was the stress, you know. And I think sometimes, even when we have a lot going on and we're very accomplished, when we just get too full and too frustrated and we're not on that higher frequency, we begin to erode our own confidence. And this is why I want to make sure that everybody's getting it tonight, that the higher frequency coming from that higher vibration is actually the most important thing, because it puts everything else in place. And I want to prove it to you now, because these other ladies in the group in the poll, who I would say are of leadership level, these are women who run organizations, or they have teams of people that they work over, or they are considered really exemplary in the work that they do, were asked to answer a poll. And I actually cherry picked a few specific people to answer it, because I wanted their particular reference point. Not to say that others are not in the same level. It's just that I knew they would probably respond, and that I hadn't reached out to them for a lot of things as well. And so this didn't feel like an imposition. And I asked them to rate 4 factors of everyday challenge. And the first one was imbalance in personal and family life, many commitments, professional and personal. So the question was, leaders, can you help? What challenge do you face every day as a leader at work or home? And it's obviously here and now. First question, is it imbalance in personal and family life, many commitments, too many, for example, professional and personal? Or is it just simply not enough time? Number 3, lack of confidence from males in their work areas or in their home environments because of their doubts in the capabilities of women. Is it not clear on one's purpose or passion? Is it lack of support, trust, and encouragement from female peers? Or is it something else, other? And I'll have you know, what do you think? In fact, before I reveal it, Deborah, what do you think people answered?
Oh goodness. I want to say it could be confidence.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we had quite an interesting response here. And what do you think, Christy? What do you think people answered?
Well, I did see the results, but prior to that, it's a lot of the balance.
Review it. So what did they answer?
The balance, if I remember.
The majority of women, 12 votes, said that in balance in personal and family life, many commitments, professional and personal, is the number one challenge. Confidence came in as a third position, the same as purpose, passion, and above support and other. And I do think confidence is quite a big one. But in this case, we see that life-work balance is actually a big, big challenge. And I'll add to it that last year we launched something called the Leadership Chamber for both men and women. High-level CEO, founders, leaders in their own right from around the world tuned in with us, myself and Sinead Hewson, in a deep dive, 1 hour powerful session that really helps leaders come to their heads, as it were. And we started off on the 21st of December, which was a really important time because we had some interesting astrological events, and Shauna is coming on later, who will also be kind of a pioneer in that space, talking about how important our planetary energies are also now. But what was so interesting is the number one problem, challenge for all those people, and these are leaders who have daily struggles like laying people off work. I mean, COVID, new regulation rules on who's allowed to be in the office, when they're allowed to work, when they're not allowed to work, all kinds of very complicated things that many of us here never ever think about. All these people, the number one priority for 2021, the number one challenge was life-work balance as well. And I think that means something very significant for all of us. I think as a planet, we are all thirsty, hungry, desperate to learn more about how to prioritize our well-being and our highest peak performance ability, and how to organize and arrange everything else so that we can actually be performing at our best, and that health and balance is how we define that. So if anything out there is confusing you about how to do that, maybe you can come back to the advice given so far. Start looking at how much is enough. Start looking at boundaries. How can you start getting some boundaries down? And how can you start putting your present mind awareness in this moment, here and now? And how can you start to have your mind and attention on small wins? What are the things that are really working nowadays? How are you really benefiting from moments, a little bit of extra time, a little bit of help here and there, a little bit of someone understanding what you need? These are important things to keep your eye on. I'm going to come back to you, Deborah, because I want you to comment a little bit more on how you explain the complexity of mindset in the struggles we're busy with. And before we do, I want to introduce to you Icon Conference's representative here. This is my new collaborator, colleague, and friend called Priyanka Kalaga Priyanka, and she's actually representing Icon Conferences that have actually decided to do a congress in Paris on the June month, I think it is.
June. It's on June.
Yeah,
Yes.
on women's health.
Yeah.
Why did you?
Yes, it's a women health conference scheduled in the month of June 24th and 25th.
Tell us, why did you choose that topic, Priyanka? Why was that chosen?
Yes, let me introduce myself. That this is Priyanka, customer service executive and event manager at Icon Conferences. So I'm the event manager at Asia Pacific region. So as we are international conference organizers, we are not only conducting the conferences and medical topics, but we are also focusing on engineering topics like healthcare and technologies, how technologies are used nowadays to introduce healthcare, like artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence is used, robotic surgeries like that. We are using many new topics, and like how nowadays the after COVID-19, how people are suffering through depression, anxiety and all. So nowadays mental health is a very good topic, so we are conducting a mental health conference in the month of July 1920 in New York, USA. So nice to meet you all here, and we are glad to invite you all at our Women Health Congress, which is scheduled in the month of June on 24th, 25th in Paris, France. So being an international conference organizer, it's a great honor to invite you all there.
Excellent. And here you see the poster. We've actually started promoting
Yes.
the group.
Yes. Thank you, Nick, for sharing this poster, this wonderful poster for us on
Yeah,
behalf of us. Yes.
we're very excited because we've decided to collaborate with ICON,
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, right.
building,
Right, Helen.
yeah, we're building two groups to head
Yes.
out to
Yeah.
the Paris conference first on women's
Yes,
health.
it's in Paris. Yes, it's in
Then
Paris.
this is a whole package
Yes.
putting together, which is 2
Yes.
nights stay in Paris, submitting
Yes.
your registration and your speaking event at the conference. And then,
Yes. You can either join, we have different categories to join the conference like speaker, delegate, exhibitor, sponsor, and student like a YRF. YRF comes under Young Researcher Forum. So you can join in either of the categories you are interested in. Definitely, we will provide you more details if you will come to know that under which category you want to register. So we'll be happy to assist you further regarding this conference.
wonderful. Just so you know, they're running another one in Japan, Tokyo,
Yes,
on
we have
leadership.
in Japan, which is in the month of September 9th and 10th. It is related to women in networking and women in leadership, which will be held in Japan, Tokyo and Japan.
Yeah, so with so many of us not sure about event-based,
Not only women health, we are conducting the conference on nursing, nursing and healthcare, telemedicine, digital health, mental health, psychiatric nursing, positive psychology. We have several different topics which are very useful nowadays.
yeah, and I think the importance of having people come together now after everything we've been challenged
Yes,
by.
yes. So because of current situation, we are having both the, yes, this is the banner. Thank you, Helenik. Thank you for sharing the screen. Yes,
I like what you're
this is
doing.
the
I think it's,
banner for mental health conference, which is scheduled in the month of July 1920 in New York, USA.
yeah. So you see there's
Yes,
quite a few projects running and people starting with this idea
yes,
of putting events out there. Thank you so
yes.
much for
So
coming.
we are not only focusing on the researchers who are ready with their research articles, but we are giving the platform to non-researchers also. Nowadays, mental health is a common thing. People are suffering, each and every people are suffering from depression. So they are free to talk at our Congress. We are giving the platform not only to researchers, but non-researchers also, so that they can share their views at our platform.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks so much for your
yes,
contributions. I will
yes,
also move to Deborah now and ask her a little bit about mental health and mindset. How do we actually come back into that awareness now of being aware of how we are responding to stress and what kind of mindset shift can we be making on all of that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand anytime you're not feeling great is really tapping into your feelings. So every time you're not necessarily feeling in a good mode, you have the opportunity to change it. And when it comes to reacting or responding, I think you touched on this earlier, and I thought that was so great because sometimes we get so frustrated in the moment. And instead of doing that snap reaction, which many of us are prone to, it's taking a step back and really changing your perception of the situation, or how would you like to see it instead? What would you prefer versus how it is? And then navigating those situations gently versus having those knee-jerk reactions that we often do. But it really starts out by being very intentional on your day and how you choose to show up, and really coming from a place of gratitude, and then you get to choose how you create your life, and you get to choose how you design it. And we are not always victim of circumstance. We actually have the choice on how we want to show up. So it's really being very intentional about how you want to show up and how you want to, I guess, especially as a mom, like, how do you want to show up as a mom? How do you want to show up as a wife? How do you want to show up in your career? You get to choose that.
I think what you said about change is foundational, that if you haven't experienced that yet and you're watching this, it's a time to go a little deeper into what was just said, maybe, and take a moment every day this week, if you can, and think about this, that if you're not happy with what's going on, or if you're not managing a situation in a particular way that you like and approve of, or think that is good for you, you have to stand back a little bit and realize that you are actually the agent of change for that you can actually choose to change the way you're approaching it, or the way you're responding, or the way that you make yourself available for it, whatever, but first you have to realize that, and then you start taking some actions, and that's where you would work with the coach to really help you figure out what you can do, what's impossible to do, what's a small pivot that is acceptable enough, etc. So one very important realization is, I can change something in this situation, maybe not all of it, but I can change something of it. And I need to sometimes, because if you don't, and this is really the issue, I think, that gets very complicated for many of us, then you could actually end up allowing a very toxic space to develop. So it's very important to realize that you create parts of your own reality, you co-create it actually, and having a mindset shift every now and again is essential when you're in a very stressful state. So that's why we talked about higher frequency. Shauna Pelton, so lovely to have you here. We're catching you up because we had a very special chat so far about how to go to a higher vibrational flow, how to get into gratitude, how to look at small wins, how to listen for respect, how to put down boundaries, how to get very clear that what you're doing is enough, not have any expectations. That's something I didn't mention that Deborah said, that was pearl of wisdom right there, and we almost missed it, is that perhaps it's a time to not have any expectations. And I think that one's worked very well for me, because I've been in lockdown, literally isolated. I don't see people for days. I don't have any reason to leave my house. I work online. I have great friends who live an hour away. Lockdown hasn't allowed me to see them. I have other friends who are too busy, or they're younger than me, and they're not as risky as I might be to meet up during lockdown curfews, whatever. So I've ended up quite hermit-like. And one thing that's really helped me is this continuous repetition of saying there are no rules and there's no expectation that you handle this in any particular way. Just look for the happiness in every moment and let it roll off if it's not there, and look for it in the next one. So this is what's really gotten me through. And I've been very, very impressed with myself, I must say, because every now and again I look back and I say, wow, you're doing all that all on your own. Wow, you still want to cook a nice meal for yourself. Wow, you want to go to the shops today. Okay. Wow, you smiled at those people. It's like these tiny little moments are becoming so priceless, and the appreciation level has increased multifold. And I know that from being in very serious meditation camps for 10 days, where your senses are contracted and you have no desire to get yourself anywhere further than where you are, and just keep your mind on this focus, then you just don't have any other options. So for me, it's been an interesting time of withdrawing the senses and becoming extremely appreciative of what gift there is. And Shauna, you run something called Quantum Shift. So I know that you know exactly what we're talking about, and that you have a really big, profound understanding of the times that we're living in. and the astrological, cosmological way that this all fits together. And both my guests tonight, both Deborah and Christy, are also spiritually minded, transformational teachers and coaches in the work they do. So we're all speaking the similar language together today. And I wanted you to put it in context for us. Tell us how you're seeing this really important shift that we're busy with, and what kind of challenges you think people are facing, and what kind of potential focus could they be having to really get through some of those challenging moments.
Wonderful question. So I have seen this as a choice point, when that moment that comes and you're faced with a decision. And as humanity is naturally evolving, and we are, individually going through our own moments of choices. And like you said, I really liked what you talked about, like the micro moments and those little decisions that we bring into our day to make new choices, to bring something positive into our life. But collectively, we are literally up leveling who and what we are. We're bringing more of the truth of who we are into embodiment. I really loved what Deborah had mentioned about, what was it? How to show up. How do you want to show up? And that's the choice. And it's that the identity, recognizing that for the longest time we have been thinking, feeling, believing, behaving like victim consciousness, in the victim consciousness. And in the energy of victim is that, it's someone else's fault or someone else's responsibility. And, or if you do take on the opposite quality, which is like, I did this and I'm responsible, and then it goes to the shame and the depths of that energy. And then that energy is weighing us down and keeping us in these old patterns of living, which, to your point earlier, Helenique, we are literally creating our reality. We're co-creating our reality together. And so the choice is that we get to make new decisions as creator consciousness. And there was a really great resource. There's a couple of them actually that talked about how we're going from this living as Homo sapiens to Homo spiritus, or Homo spiritus sanctus, and the divine self, living as the divine embodiment of self. And I do believe that. And I think that as we are facing this, what's that fulcrum? You know how it's like this squeeze point. What is that squeeze point called? I can't remember the name of it, the actual name it's described as, but if anyone knows, please pop in with it. But we're literally going through this metamorphosis. It's changing us, and we can't take with us all of the old victim consciousness behaviors and identities and the things that used to define us. We really have to redefine ourselves individually and collectively. And then from that place, what emerges are the solutions to all the problems that we're seeing. And so, 2020 was predicted to be, a year of blinding clarity, 2020 vision. And when I remember when I heard that, like before 2020 happens, I thought, of course, oh, great. Yeah, 2020 vision. We're going to see what blinding clarity. Oh, this is great. And now I'm like, oh, of course. You see it all. You see the crap that we have been, bathing in and living about, the way we've been living about our lives. And it's definitely, not comfortable for a lot of people to see themselves, to see their flaws, to recognize their shadow side. And then, as we do this work for healing, we're integrating those shadows into our lives so that we can have embodiment. And it's not about cutting anything off. It's more about the integration. And so I think that 2021 is going to be more integration. There's more challenges ahead of us. We're not necessarily out of the woods, energetically speaking, but there's good in this. The opportunity is amazing, like for growth, like profound growth. But at the same time, I have such deep compassion, and I'm sensitive to the struggles, the real struggles that people are going through. And I really appreciate that everyone here is in service to helping humanity heal and supporting us as like we are midwives to the souls who are transforming and living through this at this time.
So that was Shauna Pelton, herbal and holistic nutrition education, aesthetics, biontology, meditation, emotional healing, NLP, hypnosis, conversational intelligence, executive coaching, and really facilitates personal transformation and professional excellence in many different capacities. It's an honor to have you here together with all my great women of truth. I regard each and every one of you as really important thought leaders born for this time. And I think together we are all working to midwife in this new baby, this new planet, this new consciousness, like we've all been saying in so many different ways. And what you say, Shauna, about victim consciousness, I think is so on point. And for those who don't really understand yet what that is or don't recognize it in themselves, I'd like to give the floor over just to Christy to explain her way of understanding that and how she would reflect it back to her work and what you said earlier, maybe to also just help people very poignantly now to understand maybe how to be taking responsibility for what's going on and what's coming up. Because I think sometimes, very rightly said, Shauna, and this is one of those times, there is so much appearingly presented injustice somehow, and a lot of people are hooked in there. They are hooked into the injustice of what's going on, like we've been robbed, stolen from, it's not right, it's not fair. And there isn't yet a kind of awareness of how do I weave into this? How is what I'm doing helping? And I don't just mean about the pandemic. I mean all the different layers of the system that's collapsing and how we are all contributors of it having been built to start off with, and then how we have to kind of help rebuild something or build something totally new, and we're kind of not there yet. So the work we have to do to get there is being done right now. And of course, the more conscious we are, the better. So that's my way, kind of elaborate way of trying to say something about it. What would you say, Christy, about just this kind of victimization and being responsible for change and what's going on for yourself right now as a woman in the world? What would you add to that?
Yeah, it's really something that we, especially as women leaders, we really need to take ownership of our lives. And the easiest way that you can do that is, like Deborah had alluded to, is like really tapping into your feelings. If you're feeling good, that means that your mindset is in a healthy frame where you're, seeing the opportunities and the experiences. But if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling like discomfort or just unease, it's really an invitation for you to start to look at how you're thinking about things. So one of the things that I, tell people to do is just to spend a day without criticism or judgment, just writing down and thinking about, like, what am I actually thinking? Like, what are the thoughts that I say to myself every single day, and then identify if those are the type of thoughts that are going to be empowering you and moving you towards your goals, or if they are going to be limiting and constricting the opportunities that you're presented with. And then it's at that point where, Shauna had said, it's your choice point where you can decide, is this something that I want to continue with, or is this something that I need to modify so that I can really step into who I'm meant to be and how I can most serve in the world and leave that legacy that you're proud of leaving, that we're actually here to leave. We're here, each to make that impact. And the sooner that we can allow ourselves to get out of our own way with the, the victim mentality and really step into the co-creation aspect of our lives, that's what's going to be helping us to feel more empowered and more in control, even during those times of uncertainty. So it's really just tuning into who you need to be and who you're meant to be as you move forward.
Very, very nice messages to keep bringing in our minds is who are you meant to be, and how are you going to really take responsibility for what you're creating right now, because it's happening right now that we are planting seeds for the future. This is why we also looked so deeply, I think, at the end of last year, hoping that it would all just, blow up into this beautiful, romantic, new normal, as everybody was calling it, that it would save us somehow from having to get out of this dark tunnel. But somehow these are clues, aren't they? They're like the responsibility is a clue, the building your own reality is a clue, what do you really want is a clue, like Who are you becoming is a clue. These are all things that are going to build this new, highway to whatever we dream in for the future. Deborah, what are you saying about victimization? How do you work with that as a mindset coach?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to that word responsibility, that we are really responsible for creating the life that you want to live. And we get stuck in these old paradigms, these old beliefs, and they're strong because we've lived with them for so many years, that in order to create change, you can't continue to do the same things that you're doing. You have to make a shift in your mindset, and you have to replace those old beliefs with new positive ones. So positive affirmations is a good way to start. Like, how is your situation and how would you like it to be? And really, I guess, really focused on your desires rather than what is, because what is something that you manifested by your thoughts. Every spot on where you are today was a manifestation of a thought or something that you spoke. So it's a belief that you had. So if you want to create change, you have to do something different, and you have to replace it with positive belief systems instead of continuing to do the same thing over and over, which is the definition of insanity. You're muted, Helen.
Really being able to look deeply at what we are creating, and that we are responsible for how we are living, is one of the hardest things to do when you're not in agreement with the environmental forces that be. And if we really go deeper, I think there is no place better to practice it than there where it really hurts, because there are so many teachings through time that tell us, where you actually have the biggest resistance is where you have the biggest transformational change. So if we are in a situation like this and we manage to take some responsibility for how this day goes, no matter what the outcome is and no matter what the pressure is outside of us, that's a very, very powerful volition, a very powerful act of choice, and a very powerful skill that we'll be developing. And I think, there's something that we keep missing a little, which I think is coming in slowly at times, but perhaps we can articulate it more or extrapolate it, expand it a bit, is that I think maybe there is something about how the children, the coming generations, probably need a certain type of parenting and skills training that this particular moment and this particular struggle, as we could say, is forcing parents to galvanize, because without it, I don't think they're going to be prepared for the future. I think what we had in the past in terms of parenting, in terms of guidance, in terms of counseling and support really was good enough for last century. But when you look at where the world is heading, there isn't enough robust leadership for young people to really rely on and to feel safe and secure and to actually trust in. I mean, if anything, there is, a lot of betrayal and a lot of arid humanity in every sense of the word, from just gender-based violence all the way up to corruption and the way we deal with our trash. I mean, it's really not enough in integrity for young people to really trust in adulthood. And if anything, this force-fed crisis opportunity to get yourself responsible, to get yourself mindful, to get into a higher frequency, to not take too much time explaining away things that you've always wanted, but you just never really grab onto and commit to. This kind of discipline is very, very necessary. And I wonder if they might really need that from the adults of the world way more than they've ever had it. And that they need to cultivate some kind of robust resilience through having that kind of parenting a little bit more, even if it's for a short time. It's such a high power dose, that it's so necessary. So perhaps if, you're someone who's called and motivated, inspired to do this for the ones coming after you, or you have children and you really find them to be a big purpose in your life, then I would like to motivate and inspire you to do it for them as well. Do it for the youth, do it for the future generations. Because every single thread we weave ties back to the golden thread of all time. And that golden thread has everything to do with our essence, our purity, our deep true nature. And we have often been led astray from that truth in so many different ways. We lead ourselves astray too all the time. So perhaps this is a way to come back to that truth, to know what's really important, to commit to something that you know is significant for your life, to not make too much space anymore for things that take you down or make you feel toxic or hurt you or hurt others, to be more serious about the choices you're making at times that you know have big impact on the planet. Look at how you're dealing with your resources. And if you don't know how to begin any of this or continue it or get the support for it, it's time to also come out of that desensitized ostrich head stuck in the sand mode, which a lot of us get to because we're so overwhelmed. We don't know how to deal with climate change. We don't know how to deal with kids that are, taking drugs really early. We don't know how to deal with a lot of these things. We just go into all kinds of kind of modes of normalizing a lot of things to deal. And then I'm encouraging you to actually get support, to get mentoring, to get into groups, to find conscious circles. There are many of them now. And there are incredible people around the world that are having really poignant, powerful conversations about the future and are calling in a responsible new style of humanity on the planet. And if you're called and you're ready, and even if you're not so ready and you're not so called, I encourage you to investigate a little bit. All my guests here tonight are going to give us one last feedback, comments, supportive highlights, a takeaway, anything they like to close off tonight's session. And I want to remind you that each of them are available for personal work. If you want to reach out to any of them, you can find them on LinkedIn. You'll have their LinkedIn bio links on this video, on the live, on this channel. And you can watch every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Eastern Time on this YouTube channel. We stream the first while of our masterclass, and then once a month we stream this whole assembly so that you get the benefits of these amazing women talking about the future of women's health. And I want to let you know that next week we have Deborah Cherry actually teaching us mindset shifts on how to take on a diagnosis but not a prognosis. And that is a symbolic reference to general life as well. So make no mistake, we're not just talking about chronic illness. Everyone is telling us how limited we are, even ourselves. And we take on those diagnoses, and very often, almost always, we take on a whole prognosis with it too. We decide our life is going to be like this in the future because it's always been like that yesterday and in the past. So when we have that kind of title, we're broadening it out into a bigger message for all of us. How do we take on this particular struggle, but not define the rest of our lives by it and not get so hooked and trained into the limited thinking of it that we cannot actually see the expansive opportunity that Shauna told us it is, that Christy helped us brainstorm real parameters and structure around, and that Deborah is actually standing for in the next masterclass. So that's next Monday, the 8th of February, 7 p.m. Central Eastern Time. You need to go to Eventbrite, book a ticket. On that ticket, it's only €17. You get the chance to also have the option of getting all the masterclasses for $100. And it's nice, cheap, and affordable so that we get this information to you in a respectful way. And we have guests coming every Monday night to teach other topics. You can see the whole lineup on Eventbrite. You can see it on our Women of Truth Yin group page. And we're offering also opportunities for women to go to France, as you saw, to go to Tokyo, and to stand with us where we help promote them. One more highlight that I'll mention by one of our thought leaders, Dr. Sarah Larson, is actually the MC for this year's Conscious Living Expo event. This is an incredible project that normally runs as a conference in LA, and it has one of the biggest followings of spiritually minded people around the world on wellness, well-being, and healthy living, conscious living. And this year we are actually offering a expo slot at that conference for any of our Women of Truth members or community members, where you can have a chance to showcase your work on Saturday, the 20th of February. And we have special guests doing that who are the speakers for France and for Tokyo. And if you want an opportunity like that, I have 4 slots. So you need to reach out to me on womanoftruthx@gmail.com. And maybe you can be a lucky one who gets a slot on that Saturday to be at the expo. We're working on all these new hybrid models, conferences that go live, now have to find these tech-based solutions. And one of them is to have these roaming kind of expo spaces on these events. So this is one of those where there's like a banner, and then the whole day you'll be broadcasting from that expo booth, and guests at the conference come and visit you, and there's certain walk-in tours. And so this is a nice way to test out tech solutions for the future. So if you want a shot at that, reach out to me. So let's go to Christy. Thank you so much for being with me today with all our guests. I'm going to connect you all on LinkedIn as a group, but tell us, what are your final words, takeaway, highlights for what we've been busy with tonight?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I can leave everyone with is to remember that in every experience, whether it's something that's difficult and challenging for us, or if it's a positive blessing, is that there's also a deeper lesson, a deeper spiritual lesson, that if we actually peel back the layers of it, we will find a deeper truth about ourselves and how we view our place in the world. So this really right now is an invitation for us to rediscover a new level of who we are, so that we can step more deeply into the person that we're becoming, so we can leave that legacy that we're meant to leave, because I believe that we're each here for a purpose and with a purpose, and that the impact that we have is going to be beyond what we can even imagine. So it's our responsibility to really become that person that we feel called to be inside, knowing that as we do, we're going to be changing the world in an amazing way. So that's the last thing, is just to remember your greatness.
Very beautiful. Like, really be mindful of what you're leaving behind. And do you still have your gift, Christy, of meditations?
I do. Yes, I have 3 meditations. They're hypnotic meditations that can help you to shift from the chaos that's going on in our world around us, and really recenter to the calm that we have within ourselves in each and every moment. So that can be found at powerful-mind.com/free meditation.
Yeah, so you're needing some help with calming down, centering your mind, doing a little self-care practice. I know Christy had this beautiful package on one of our summits, and you can still get it. So you're really lucky. Go to that address. Can you tell us again, Christy, where to get it?
Sure. Yes, it's powerful-mind.com/free meditation.
Beautiful. Powerful mind.
.com. Yep, /free meditation.
Invitation. Beautiful. So now we move to Shauna. Takeaways, highlights, last comments. What would you say, Shauna?
So this has really been really powerful. I'm so grateful to be a part of this panel. And one of the things that I want to leave is for people who might be feeling the overwhelm, which is natural. I mean, there's a lot to be processing right now. What I've come to realize is that the truth is that there are no obstacles that are outside of us. There's just simply an inability to perceive who we are in the face of those obstacles. And so the opportunity is to build up the connection to our soulful self, our innermost nature. And then from that, we are able to then see solutions to these perceived challenges that we're facing. And so it might be, a desired, or at least this belief that we think we need to fix something outside of us. And so this is an opportunity to really kind of bring it back and keep it simple, and just simply build up the ability to see the truth of who and what you really are.
Whoa, I just dropped down right into my center when I heard you speak, and I knew you were transmitting so powerfully. Thank you so much for that very beautiful message as well now from Shauna, telling us how to really just bring it back to the self and really come back into your own growth in this time, and know that that is enough. And that's a really good point that ties in with our very first message about all these 7, 8 challenging things that there is to do. If you are really just focusing on that higher frequency, and you remember that this is a time to really just be with yourself in a peaceful way, as much as you can cultivate of that, that's going to be the greatest strength for this time. And I know you also run your podcast, Quantum Shift, Shauna, where you speak to incredible people that are really visionaries. And there is a free course that you run called Envisioneering Quest.
You got it.
Anyone that wants to take that on, you can actually get it at shift.us or shift.us.
Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift.
How does quantum work with shift? Is it one word? Quantum
It's
shift.
one word. Yes, quantumshift.us.
Very good. So if you want to do that course, everybody, you've got some amazing offers already here tonight. Something to really calm and center meditation, and now something to actually look a little bit at the quest part of this and how to bring it back to what's most essential. Quantum Shift, as you spell it, QUANTUMSHIFT.US. You'll see that also on this video. And now I come to Deborah. Thank you so much, Shauna, for centering us like that so beautifully. Deborah Cherry, tell us your masterclass next week, Monday, is happening. People know how to tune in with Eventbrite tickets. What are your takeaways, highlights, and findings from tonight?
Yeah, I think anytime there's contrast, we look at it and we really resist it. Instead, lean into the contrast, because contrast is there as your friend. It's there to show you what you prefer versus what you don't want. So every time you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And it's not staying focused in what you don't want, it's focusing on what your desire is. And you can be, do, or have anything, but you will never go beyond where you believe you can go. So it's really replacing those old ideas, patterns, and they're genetic, they are environmental, and replacing them with new ones in order to create a better life for yourself.
I loved how you said that last time we met and again tonight, that you cannot go beyond what you don't believe you can.
That's right.
So it's so important to be expanding that right now, and very helpful to be reminded also of this contrast. You know, there's so many wonderful, wonderful things in this universe. And if we just chose randomly, it would be chaos. So we have to go with what we don't like to know what we like. And it's a good thing to be remembering now. It can help us tremendously to know that if you just clear that you want to do it better, then just start to focus on that. And if you didn't like your reaction with your child 5 minutes ago, next time you react to them, try and remember that and try and do it another way. I want to thank all my guests. It's been lovely spending this time with you. You all also have such a beautiful resonance. When I look at you and I think of you, I see you in similar ways, all in the United States. I hope when you connect and synergize up, great things come from this. I want to thank all the people watching, everybody who's been supporting this work throughout. I see it trickling in, and then I see it kind of expanding and booming and blooming. And I really want to thank you all for contributing to bring your time, your energy, and your attention to all of this, because I think as we build a community of people becoming more conscious about how to use this time and to really find and create that silver lining through it, we are going to be bringing in the new world. And I am looking forward to each and every one of us taking conscious contributions, and also beginning to contribute ourselves to that entire process in more conscious ways. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night to all of you, and take care. And we'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye.